You were moving. Promotions came. Titles changed. Each year brought something new, new responsibility, new scope, new evidence that the trajectory was working. You were building something. The early years had a momentum that felt like it would continue indefinitely if you kept doing what was producing the results. Then it stopped. Not with a conversation, not with a rejection, just a gradual, imperceptible deceleration until the movement you had learned to expect simply ceased. And the rules that produced results in the first half of your career stopped producing them in the second. Career progress does not stall because you stopped performing. It stalls because you crossed a threshold where performance is no longer the primary currency. My name is Zara, and today we are going to name the threshold, what changes when you cross it, why no one explains it, and what the people who keep moving after it understand that most people never do. Picture someone 8 years into a career. The first 4 years produced consistent, measurable progress. 2 promotions, expanding scope, increasing compensation, every marker of a trajectory that was working. The last 4 years have produced almost nothing by comparison. Same organization, same level of effort. The work is as strong as it has ever been. The conversations with leadership remain positive. The performance reviews say all the right things. Development feedback focuses on soft skills, executive presence, strategic thinking, stakeholder influence without specifying what any of those phrases actually require in practice. This person has done everything that worked before. More of it. Better versions of it. And the results that effort used to produce have simply stopped materializing. The question they carry into every new year is the one that has no clean answer inside the framework they were given. Why does the same input produced advancement for 4 years produce nothing now? Here is the diagnosis. The input did not change. The game changed around it. The rules that advance you in the first half of a career are not the rules that advance you in the second. And no one tells you when the rules change. There are 4 mechanisms that explain why career progress stalls at a specific point in most organizational trajectories. Each one activates at the same threshold, the transition from individual contributor to the level above it, and none of them are ever formally explained. Mechanism. Number 1. The skill discontinuity. The skills that produce advancement in the early career are execution skills, the ability to take a defined task and complete it reliably, accurately, and at speed. These skills are visible, measurable, and directly rewarded by organizations because they produce outputs the organization can point to. The skills required at the next level are categorically different. Strategy, judgment under ambiguity, the ability to influence without authority, the capacity to manage competing priorities across people who do not report to you. These are not execution skills developed to a higher standard. They are a different category of capability entirely. The mechanism is category discontinuity. Getting better at execution skills does not develop strategic skills. They require different experiences, different feedback loops, and different contexts to build. The person who optimizes harder for what produced early results is not developing the skills that produce the next ones. Advancing past a certain point does not require doing what you did better. It requires doing something different entirely. Mechanism number 2, the visibility architecture shift. Early career advancement is evaluated by a person with direct, daily visibility of your work, your immediate manager. They observe your output. They assess your reliability. The information they use to evaluate you is available to them through the normal course of working together. Senior advancement is evaluated by people who have no direct visibility of your work. Decisions about director-level roles and above are made by people 2, 3, and 4 levels up, people whose exposure to you is limited to presentations, meetings, and second-hand impressions formed through conversation with others. The mechanism is audience change. The audience that evaluated you in the early career is no longer the audience making decisions about your progress. The behaviors that performed well for a proximate evaluator, consistent delivery, detailed execution, reliable attendance to task, are largely invisible to a distal one. The behaviors that perform well for distal evaluators, narrative, visibility, strategic relationship architecture were never required before this point. The people who decide your advancement at senior levels have almost no direct evidence of your work. They are deciding based on a story. Most people have not written one. Mechanism number 3. The sponsorship requirement early career advancement operates primarily on merit, on the evidence of performance that your direct manager can observe and communicate upward. The manager advocates because the advocacy is easy. The evidence is in front of them. Senior advancement operates primarily on sponsorship, on the willingness of someone with organizational influence to use that influence on your behalf in rooms you are not in. Sponsorship is different from mentorship. A mentor gives advice. A sponsor deploys political capital. Sponsorship requires a relationship, a track record of trust, and a sponsor who believes that advocating for you benefits their own organizational position. The mechanism is advocacy dependency. At the level where the work speaks for itself, the work speaks. At the level where the work is too complex and distributed to speak for itself, someone must speak for it. And that someone must have both the access and the incentive to do so. Most people at the stall point have mentors. They do not have sponsors. The distinction is the entire difference. A mentor tells you what to do differently. A sponsor tells people in power what you have already done. Only one of them changes your organizational position. Mechanism number 4. The ambiguity tolerance test early career roles are defined. There are job descriptions, clear deliverables, measurable outcomes, and established processes for producing them. Success is legible. The person who executes well inside a defined structure succeeds. Senior roles are deliberately undefined. The scope is broad and overlapping. The priorities are competing and sometimes contradictory. The resources are insufficient for the mandate. The problems have no established solutions. And the person in the role is expected to create clarity rather than operate within it. The mechanism is deliberate ambiguity as a selection filter. Organizations use the early senior levels as a testing environment for tolerance of undefined conditions. The person who waits for clarity before acting, who needs defined parameters to produce, who defaults to escalation when the path is unclear, this person is filtered out. The person who creates structure where none exists, who acts on incomplete information and course corrects, who is comfortable being responsible for outcomes they cannot fully control, this person advances. The test is never announced. Most people do not know they are in it. The senior level is not a harder version of the job below it. It is a test of your relationship with uncertainty, and the test has been running since before you knew it started. Here is what the stall produces across time if the mechanisms go unnamed. The person who does not understand why progress stopped does the only thing available to them. They do more of what worked before. They execute harder, deliver faster, and demonstrate reliability more consistently. Every additional investment in execution skills deepens the gap between what they are developing and what advancement now requires. The feedback they receive offers no correction. Soft skill development, executive presence, strategic thinking, stakeholder influence is named without being defined. The action items written at the end of each review cycle address symptoms without diagnosing the cause. And each year that passes without movement adds to the organizational story that this person has reached their level. That story, once established, is extremely difficult to revise from the inside. The organization has calibrated its expectations. Changing those expectations requires disrupting a narrative that multiple people have contributed to over multiple years. The stall compounds. Every year of plateau is evidence the organization uses to justify the next year of plateau. Here is the lens that changes the trajectory from this point forward. Stop investing effort into the behaviors that produced early results, and expect them to produce late results. The return on execution investment drops to near zero past a certain organizational threshold, not because execution stops mattering, but because it becomes a baseline expectation rather than a differentiator. You cannot advance by exceeding a baseline. You advance by demonstrating capability at the level above the one you currently occupy. That demonstration requires a different investment portfolio, less time optimizing current task delivery, more time building strategic visibility, sponsorship relationships, and a track record of operating in ambiguous conditions. You do not get promoted to the next level for being excellent at the current one. You get promoted for already behaving as though you are at the next one. 3 moves. Executable before the next review cycle. Move number 1. Identify one problem at the level above yours and solve it without being asked. Not a task, a problem. Something that sits in the scope of the role above you, that your current manager has not prioritized, that you can address using existing access and resources. Bring the solution, not the problem. Document it. Present it upward. This single action produces direct evidence of capability at the next level, evidence that does not exist anywhere in your current performance record. Move number 2. Build one sponsorship relationship with deliberate intent in the next 90 days. Identify one person 2 levels above you whose work intersects with your area. Find a legitimate way to contribute directly to something they care about, a question they have raised, a problem their team is navigating, an initiative they are leading. Contribute once, specifically, and well. One direct contribution to a senior person's priorities is more valuable for advancement than a year of excellent work that never reaches them. Move number 3. Begin operating in the ambiguity register in your current role. The next time a situation arises where the path is unclear and your instinct is to escalate for guidance, pause, develop a position. Bring your recommendation alongside the question rather than the question alone. Here is the situation, here is what I think we should do, and here is why I wanted to align with you before acting. This behavior, practiced consistently, builds a record of judgment and initiative that is the primary evidence senior evaluators use. It costs nothing. It produces the specific signal that advancement past the stall point requires. The threshold exists. Now you know where it is. You were not stalling because you stopped working. You were stalling because you kept working harder at a game whose rules had changed, and no one told you the rules had changed because the people above you benefited from the gap between what you knew and what they knew. The threshold is real. The skill discontinuity is real. The audience shift, the sponsorship requirement, the ambiguity test, all of it is real, and none of it is accidental. The people who advance past it are not more talented. They received the information earlier. Some were told directly. Some figured it out through observation. Most spent years in the stall before the picture became clear. You are receiving the information now. The career you were building did not stop. The map you were using stopped being accurate. And no one tells you to get a new map because the people who have one prefer that you don't. Now, if this video named something you have been experiencing without being able to explain it, drop the word stall in the comments. Just that word. I want to know how many people this channel is reaching who are at the threshold right now and finally have a name for what they are standing in front of. I'm Zara. Thank you for watching.